The Bold Type is a fun and funky show that follows the lives and relationships of women working at a fashion magazine. Fans adored it not only because it had great acting and was a great show, it was also a show that inspired women to become bold. It can be a little bit wild and some of the shows can be batty, but they have still left us some surprises. Let's look at The Bold Type Unscripted and unexpected moments and facts. Warning, spoilers ahead. Please remember to hit the like button if you enjoy this video, then subscribe to our channel and turn on the notifications. That way you will never miss a thing. The basis of the show. The show has been accused of being pretty unrealistic at times and showing some of the relationships through rose-colored glasses, but it is more realistic than you might think. The show is inspired by the life of executive producer Joanna Coles. She used to be the editor-in-chief for the magazine Cosmopolitan. Many of the scenes were taken from experiences that she actually had. For most of us, when we think about a magazine editor that gets portrayed in movies, our thoughts immediately go to The Devil Wears Prada. Most of the movies and shows that are set in the fashion world with strong female bosses also make these women pretty mean and uncaring. But The Bold Type has taken a different route when it comes to this. With Jacqueline Carlisle, the editor-in-chief of fictional magazine Scarlet, they created a different character. Don't get me wrong, Jacqueline is still a very strong character, but she is also more human and caring at the same time. The unexpected thing might be that it was a very conscious decision that the creators made to create a female boss that was also very encouraging and supportive. Since the show is based on the life of Joanna Coles, the character of Jacqueline is also based on people she has worked for while building her career. She had said that most of the women she had worked for had been really supportive and encouraging, much more than the women that give each other a super hard time. It is nice to know that for some, that is more the reality, the moment that was inspired by real life. This is one of those scenes that everyone thought might have taken things a little bit too far. No one was going to believe that it could happen, but it makes it even funnier that it was one scene that was based on an event that actually happened. In the scene, Jane needs to write an article about exploring her sexuality more. As research, she gets a yoni egg to use. But things don't entirely go according to plan. She gets the egg stuck in some uncomfortable places. It was a pretty funny scene, and we will be talking about it a little bit more in the next part. But for now, let's explore where this scene came from. It was a pretty funny story in real life, too. In real life, the story is about this writer that was doing a story about a sponge. This too got stuck, and she wasn't able to remove it herself. Now, we don't know if that particular writer had such good friends that were willing to help her out, or if she had to get medical help. But what we do know is that this story actually kind of happened in real life. It kind of makes the scene even funnier. That wasn't the only thing from that scene that made it special. There was a lot of improvisation. Another thing that made this scene even more special and unique is that most of the conversations in the scene were improvised. It sounds like the part where Kat was trying to help Jane get the yoni egg unstuck was more than a little bit awkward and even funnier to film than it was to watch. It was very, very lucky that the girls are super close in real life too, because otherwise things might have been very weird. Katie Stevens, who plays Jane, was wearing Spanx to help them make the scene very believable. The yoni egg was placed inside the Spanx. Then Aisha D, as Kat, had to go in and retrieve it. Getting it out of the Spanx may not be as bad as where Kat was helping Jane get it from, but it was still pretty bad. They decided to have fun with it. The egg was close to the base of where Katie's butt was, and she would move it around by moving her behind. Every time that D had to go in and get it, she would actually have to look for it to find it. They did a number of takes, so it wasn't a case of just doing it once. D and the director, Victor Nelly Jr., decided to make it even more fun. Without Katie Stevens or Megan Fahey, that plays Sutton, seeing it, Victor put a box of stuff out of view. Only D knew about it or could see it. She kept pulling out random objects in the one take, like car keys, and even a rubber ducky. The funniest part was since they weren't improvising, the other two actresses weren't entirely sure if it was a serious take or not. They had to stay in character even while these random funny things were coming out of Jane's private parts. I kind of wish that they kept that scene, but it might have just been what pushed the fans too far. That surely wouldn't have been believable, but still funny. I think the strong real-life friendship between those women is really what made the show as special as it was. Bumping into each other with juice. Another unplanned moment that made it onto screen was in a scene when all of the girls were literally running into each other with juice. The three women would bump into each other and juice would go flying everywhere. Again, they were doing multiple shots of the scene. It was starting to get a little bit messy and sticky and just overall a disaster waiting to happen at any second. Added to that they were all wearing heels and running, so that it was just a matter of time before things would go wrong. Katie Stevens remembers the shoot, saying that she just knew she was going to get hurt the last time that they were doing the scene. It was right at that moment that it happened. Like with all the other times they did it, they all ran toward each other and bumped into each other, juice splashing everywhere. But at that moment, Katie slipped on the wet floor and went down hard. At first, she tried to laugh it off, but then realized that it really hurt. She cried from the embarrassment and the pain. That was the shot they ended up using in the show. They didn't show her actually on the floor in tears, but you can see that she's going down. It might not have been the most fun shoot for her, but it sure did add an interesting story to the show. The Bold Type has a connection to the royal family. Okay, well, this one might be a little bit of a stretch. It is still technically true. The Bold Type does have connections to Suits, the show that Meghan Markle starred in. Suits and The Bold Type use the same main building for their show's office building. Eagle-eyed fans noticed that both lobbies were the same. Both shows also use the same exterior angles and shots of the building. This building is the Canadian city of Toronto. But that isn't where the connection to Suits ended. The two shows even had some actors in common. In the first episode of The Bold Type, the three girls enter their office building and they take a selfie in the lobby. There's a guy behind them telling them to move and who then proceeded to photobomb their picture. This rude guy appeared in Suits too. He robbed poor Louis Litt in an alley, severely traumatizing him. But besides all of that, many fans consider these women on the bold type queens of the screen. The married couple. Jacqueline's marriage to Ian Carlisle is an important part of the show. Their relationship gets explored on the show on numerous occasions. Something that might surprise fans is that the actors who play this couple, Melora Hardin and Gildart Jackson, are actually a couple in real life. They have been married since 1997 and they have 2 daughters together. It is easy to know why they have such great chemistry on set with each other. The show added even more reality to the on-screen relationship. The episode that shows Jacqueline's wedding anniversary is a fan favorite. But what might make it even more special is the fact that on the day that they filmed the anniversary episode, it was also the day that Melora and Gildart had their own anniversary. Another incredible way that the show included fact into the fictional world that they were creating. It is really something that this show did really well. They have a lot of little pieces that have their basis in reality included into the series where the rest of the stories are fictional. It is fun to watch the show and try to guess which situations were real and which ones were completely bogus and based on imagination. Fashion was super important. You might think that this one is a little bit obvious. Of course, fashion was super important in this show. The characters work on a magazine that is mostly focused on fashion. The wardrobe of all the girls, especially for the character Sutton, are always incredible. But you might not realize just how much effort the crew was willing to put in order to make Scarlet magazine as real as possible. For the scene where Sutton creates a mood board, the show's props and graphic departments worked together to create 20 Scarlet magazines. Sutton could then use these in the scene to create her mood board. Talk about attention to detail. The Bold Type is a great show with surprising moments. Thanks for watching!